Memorial Lecture. Few made a greater contribution than the late Justice Graham Hill to improving revenue law in Australia. His contribution was greatest in the area of practising, teaching and as a judge determining questions of revenue law. Justice Hill was president of the Tax Institute in 1984-5 and remained a great contributor as a speaker and supporter until he passed away at the age of 66 in 2005. In memory of this outstanding lawyer and judge and in recognition of his contribution to the Tax Institute and the tax profession, our first session is named the Justice Hill Memorial Lecture. I'll ask David Bloom to come forward. David, we have asked to deliver the Justice Hill Memorial Lecture this year, and it is my pleasure to introduce David Hill, QC FTIA, to the podium. By way of background, I'm sure a number of you would know David Bloom. David is a barrister at 7 Wentworth. He was admitted as a solicitor in the Supreme Court of New South Wales in March 1972, was called to the New South Wales Bar in August 1975 and became one of Her Majesty's Council in 1987. He's a member of the New York State Bar and Bar of England and Wales, and over a career that spans more than 30 years, David has appeared in some of the most important landmark cases in taxation law as well as public law generally. David practices in all Supreme Court jurisdictions and maintains chambers in both Sydney and Melbourne. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Peter. I haven't got a film to go with this. It's truly an honour to have been asked to deliver the 4th Graham Hill Memorial Lecture, not the least having regard to those all judges or former judges who have preceded me. It's especially pleasing to be able to do so here in Brisbane so soon after the recent devastating floods. Those who've preceded me have spoken of Graham's time at school, his time at the bar and his time on the bench. Much focus was justifiably placed on the strength of his judgments in the tax area and the respect shown for him by the High Court of Australia. The practice continues in the 3 High Court judgments on Section 8.1 to which my paper refers. Each cites some passage from a Hill judgment. 2 of my predecessors were former High Court justices, one Murray Gleeson, the former Chief Justice, and the other Michael Kirby. Both had been in the same year as Graham at law school, but Graham was the medalist. I joined Graham at what was then Dawson Waldron in 1972, shortly after graduating from law school. My tax law experience at that time consisted of 1 inspirational year with Professor Ross Parsons, and of stamp death, gift and estate duties I knew absolutely nothing. In 1941, Robert C. Smith and J.G. Stark, both barristers, had through the Law Book Company published Stamp Death and Estate Duties, a relatively slim book containing annotated copies of the New South Wales Stamp Duties Act and the Commonwealth Estate Duty Assessment Act, as well as related legislation. The book was republished by Smith alone in 1950 as Stamp, Death, Estate and Gift Duties. It now dealt with a new federal gift duty, but was still relatively slim. In 1970, in a book 3 or 4 times the size of its predecessor, D.G. Hill authored a new edition of Stamp, Death, Estate and Gift Duties. The book bore little relationship, too, to its predecessor in terms of content. It was, and in original form remains, notwithstanding the passage of time and the repeal of the Commonwealth Acts, and a fundamental change in stamp duties, a masterful work to which reference may always be had. Like my copy of Parsons' book, it's never allowed to leave my chambers. In 1972, Graham was also the lecturer in the Sydney Uni Masters course in Stamp, Death, Estate and Gift Duties. One of his first suggestions, as I began what can best be described as a 3.5-year apprenticeship, was to enrol in the Masters course at Sydney Uni. I did so. He would in due course be my lecturer, but unfortunately he couldn't mark my paper. I think if he could have, I would have got a better mark. His second suggestion was that I join the TIA, and I did that too. Now, how lucky was I? Graham and I were, for at least the first year and a half, the entire tax section of Dawson Waldron. The main Dawson Waldron offices were on the floor above us in the old 60